You understand now that you are no longer waiting for the narcissist to validate you with their praise, accept you as someone worthy, or finally acknowledge the depth of your value. The days of twisting yourself into 1,000 different versions of who you think they want you to be, just to earn a sliver of their attention or approval, are firmly behind you. This isn't just a decision, it's a revelation. You've seen the pattern for what it is, a cycle of endless adaptation that drains your energy and erodes your sense of self. The truth, stark and undeniable, is that narcissists thrive by convincing you that their approval is the sole measure of your worth. They create an invisible hierarchy where your self-esteem becomes tethered to their ever-shifting moods, their arbitrary judgments, and the unattainable standards they impose. These standards aren't just high, they're designed to be unreachable, a trap that keeps you scrambling for recognition that will never come. For years, you might have bought into this illusion. You bent yourself into shapes that pleased them, held your breath to avoid conflict, and poured effort into tasks you hoped would finally make them see you. Every small act, every compromise, every silence felt like a step toward their validation, though you never quite arrived. But here's the turning point. When you've truly broken free from this toxic dynamic, the game collapses entirely. You stop playing altogether. You realize that their approval was never a prize to be earned, but a moving target, a tool they wielded to keep you dependent, exhausted, and questioning your own worth. It wasn't that you fell short, it was that they had no intention of rewarding you fairly. Their validation was a mirage, always just out of reach, because their goal was never to satisfy you. It was to keep you chasing. This understanding is nothing short of transformative. It's liberating to grasp that your value has never hinged on their opinion. When you stop seeking their praise, your focus shifts inward. You begin to recognize your own strength, your resilience, and the quiet power of self-acceptance. You start affirming yourself, celebrating your progress without needing their nod of approval. The questions you once asked, "Am I N for them?" lose their weight. Instead you ask, "Are they enough for me?" This reversal flips the script entirely. Suddenly, the burden of proving your worth lifts, and the spotlight turns on their inability to meet even the most basic standards of respect and reciprocity. In this clarity, there's peace, there's strength, and there's a quiet joy in knowing you've reclaimed your power. Not by winning their approval, but by realizing you never needed it in the first place. Let me make this clear. Their hold on you is an illusion, and the moment you recognize that, it begins to dissolve. The pursuit of their approval, once a relentless chase, no longer defines your sense of self-worth, love, or security. When you stop tethering your value to their erratic validation, something shifts. You become unshakable, untouchable, because your foundation is no longer built on their unpredictable whims. Their power to dictate how you feel about yourself crumbles the instant you choose to stand firm in your own truth. This journey begins with reconnecting to your inner voice, the one they drowned out with their relentless criticism, gaslighting, and manipulation. For so long, their words polluted your thoughts, making you question your instincts, doubt your memories, and second-guess your decisions. But now you hear yourself again. That quiet, unwavering voice inside, the voice of intuition, wisdom, and self-trust, rises above the noise they once created. You start making choices rooted in your own clarity, not their attempts to confuse or control you. Every decision becomes a declaration of independence, a refusal to let their distortions shape your reality. Their tactics, once so effective, now feel transparent and hollow. The guilt trips designed to make you feel responsible for their unhappiness. You see them for what they are. Tools of coercion meant to pull you back into their orbit. The silent treatments meant to isolate and destabilize you. You no longer flinch at their coldness, because you've learned to fill your own silence with self-compassion. Even their backhanded compliments, those sneaky attempts to mix praise with poison, no longer fool you. You recognize these maneuvers as desperate efforts to regain control, to lure you back into the cycle of chasing their approval. But you're done playing their game. There's a finality to this break, a clean severing of the strings they once pulled. It's like flicking a light switch. One moment, they cast a shadow over your confidence. The next, their influence vanishes, leaving only clarity. They used to wield immense power over you, able to crush your spirit with a dismissive glance, or momentarily soothe your pain with a few carefully chosen words. But now, their ability to manipulate your emotions is gone. Why? Because you've realized that their perception of you never defined your worth. Your worth has always stemmed from how you see yourself, from the quiet, unshakable knowledge of your own strength, resilience, and inherent value. As you step further into this freedom, something remarkable happens. You start rebuilding your sense of self, without apology or hesitation. You celebrate your growth, your courage, your ability to walk away, and in doing so, you create a version of yourself that narcissists can't reach, can't tarnish, and can't exploit. This inner peace isn't fragile or conditional. It's rooted in the truth that you are enough, not because they say so, but because you've chosen to believe in your own worth. Their absence no longer feels like a loss. It feels like liberation. Let them throw their fits, scream, or stomp their feet in frustration. Allow them to retreat into their childish games, circling back with their tired scripts of manipulation. It no longer matters. You're too preoccupied with the simple yet profound act of embracing yourself, nurturing your own happiness, and building a life that no longer orbits around their chaos. Their antics are background noise now, a distraction you've chosen to ignore because your focus has shifted inward to the quiet strength that grows when you finally stop chasing validation from someone who never intended to give it. One of the clearest signs of this transformation is the moment you stop searching for their approval. Gone are the days of twisting your words, softening your edges, or second-guessing your worth just to earn a nod from someone who thrived on keeping you uncertain. When their power fades, their old tricks, once so effective, begin to unravel. The lies they spun to distort reality, the guilt they weaponized to trap you, the passive-aggressive jabs designed to erode your confidence, all of it becomes painfully transparent. It's like watching a magician repeat the same tired tricks. Once you've seen how the illusion works, the wonder vanishes, leaving only the hollow mechanics beneath. They used to wield conversations like weapons, twisting simple exchanges into emotional battlegrounds. They'd gaslight you until you questioned your memory, your sanity, even your own voice. They'd rewrite history in real time, painting themselves as the victim and casting you as the villain, all while wearing expressions of wounded innocence. But something shifts inside you when you've truly broken free. You stop getting hooked by their drama. Their provocations no longer pull you into spirals of doubt or defensiveness. You recognize their tactics for what they are, desperate attempts to regain control over someone who's already walked away. Now, you see the patterns with ruthless clarity. The sudden flood of love bombing after a period of cold silence, the false affection meant to reel you back in. The calculated silence itself, a tool to isolate and destabilize you. The rage disguised as constructive criticism, designed to keep you off balance and scrambling to appease them. These tactics once rattled you, sent you spiraling into self-doubt or frantic efforts to fix things. But now, you watch them unfold like a rehearsed performance, unimpressed and unmoved. You stay calm, steady, because you've learned to pause before reacting, to question their intent without losing yourself in the process. You stop wasting energy defending yourself against their baseless accusations. No more circular arguments, no more pleading for understanding from someone who's never been interested in empathy. You've accepted the truth they'll never admit. They don't want to understand you, they want to dominate. to feed their fragile ego by bending your will to theirs. But you're done handing them that power. You've reclaimed it. If their schemes falter now, it's not because they've changed, it's because you have. You're no longer the person who believed love could be earned through endless compromise, who thought patience and explanation would soften their cruelty. You've outgrown the version of yourself that mistook control for care, who stayed silent, hoping silence would bring peace. That person is gone, replaced by someone who knows their worth, isn't tied to a narcissist's approval, someone who walks away without looking back, because they've finally learned to love and protect the one person who's always deserved it themselves. You now recognize that their manipulation doesn't reflect your worth. It reveals their profound emptiness. Their need to twist reality, distort truth, and rewrite history isn't a sign of strength or intelligence. It's a desperate attempt to fill the void within them. They cling to control because they have nothing solid to stand on, so they scramble to redefine your reality, hoping it will anchor them. But your foundation is rooted in honesty, in the unshakable knowing of who you are and what you deserve. You no longer trade your truth for their illusions. You stay grounded in your own world, your own values, your own voice, a space they can't infiltrate because it belongs to you alone. This clarity strips a narcissist of their power. When you refuse to react the way they expect, when you stop arguing over facts they refuse to acknowledge, stop absorbing their insults as if they define you, and stop letting their chaos dictate your peace, you dismantle their control. It drives them to frustration, even rage, because their entire strategy hinges on predictable responses. But you've learned to step outside their script. You stay calm, not by suppressing emotions, but by recognizing that their theatrics are a waste of your energy. Their provocations, once so piercing, now feel like distant thunder, loud, but unable to touch you. What used to send you spiraling into self-doubt is now background noise, static you've tuned out because you finally heard yourself clearly. And now, you see their tactics with brutal transparency. The more you detach, the more obvious their patterns become. The frantic pursuit of any reaction, the thinly veiled panic beneath their bluster, the way their bravado cracks under the weight of their own insecurity. They're like actors, stuck in a role they've rehearsed too many times, predictable, hollow, and utterly powerless when no one's watching. You no longer feel small in their presence. Instead, you feel the quiet strength of someone who's chosen to rise above their games. True power, you've realized, isn't loud or performative. It's the stillness of knowing your worth without needing to prove it, the courage to walk away while their ego screams for attention, demanding you validate them one last time. There comes a moment when the mental cord connecting you to them finally severs. You stop carrying the weight of their moods, their failures, their unhappiness. For so long, they taught you to internalize their chaos, to believe that their anger was your fault, their mistakes your responsibility to fix, their dissatisfaction a reflection of your inadequacy. You absorbed their toxicity as if it were your job to clean up after them, to soothe their insecurities, to make their world fit the narrative they demanded. But when that link dissolves, you're free. You no longer take ownership of their sound. Their problems are theirs to face, not yours to solve. This isn't detachment born of indifference. It's self-preservation born of wisdom. You've stopped blaming yourself for their instability, because you finally see the truth. None of it was ever yours to carry. Their volatility, their need to dominate, their refusal to take accountability, all of it was a mirror reflecting their brokenness, not yours. And now, with that realization, you stand in your truth, unshaken. You don't need to rise above them in a dramatic way. You simply exist in your own light, quiet and unwavering, while their shadows fade into irrelevance. Stop second-guessing the choices you make just because other people don't like them. You stop going over talks over and over again and wondering what you could have said differently to keep them from getting mad. You no longer feel bad about putting yourself first because you know they made you feel guilty. Seed it. Used it to keep you in line. You can't take away the truth once you see it. You know that their feelings are their duty and not yours. You know that liking and understanding someone doesn't mean putting up with their problems. You no longer respond to their guilt trips when the emotional cord is cut. You don't freak out when they ignore you or punish you in silence. You sit with the pain instead and tell yourself, "It is not my job to control how they feel." That is so strong I can't even describe it. Sign 3. The emotional tie is finally broken. You start making choices based on what's good for you instead of what will make them feel good for a short time. You can choose for yourself without their approval. You don't have to explain or defend why you're setting limits anymore. You just do it in a clear, calm, and honest way. You no longer want them to understand or forgive you. You already got closure from yourself, so you don't need them to give it to you. The emotional tie that held you back from their emotions and tricks is gone. Instead, there is a calm peace that won't go away. A peace that says, "I'm enough. I was always that." A peace that can't be broken by a temper tantrum, gaslighting, or a fake apology. You can finally breathe again after cutting the mental cord. Now you can hear your own words over all the other noise. Now you can trust yourself without needing other people to agree with your decisions. Not just getting through them, but living beyond them. That's the ultimate freedom. You get up, not just move on. You rebuild. Also, you do it without carrying the weight of guilt and duty with you. Once upon a time, you thought you owed someone everything. Now, you don't owe them anything. It's no longer enough to just talk about boundaries. You have to impose them. You don't just say no to narcissists when you've really beaten them. You actually do it, and can't be changed. You may have made a line in the past and seen it disappear as soon as they pushed back. You may have said, "I won't put up with that." But when the yelling started, you backed down, said sorry, and gave them second and third chances. Because back then, because of their acceptance, moods and cycles, you kept forgiving things that you shouldn't have given up, but no longer. Now your limits are there to keep you safe, not to change them. You let go of the idea that they'll finally get it if you're just patient, clear, or nice enough. You know that narcissists don't care about limits because they see other people as parts of themselves. They think they can control your time, energy, and feelings, and you're done letting them. You make your mark in the sand. You don't say anything when they test it, which they will. You don't fight. You don't beg people to understand. You make sure when you say no, you really mean it. When they cross a line, you leave. When the talk gets rude, you end it. You put the phone down. The number is blocked. You take away entry. You show them your limits, not just tell them what they are, every single time. And here's the thing, your limits will be set off when you start to enforce them. They'll say you're cold, selfish, and dramatic. People will call you bad. They will try to make you feel bad about going back to old habits. You know better now, though. It's clear that your limits are working because of their temper tantrums, claims, and anger. The fact that they get angry because you said no shows that you're doing the right thing to keep the peace. Having clear rules is not the same as being mean. That's not a small thing. You're realizing that you can't give up your self-respect. Don't wait any longer for them to treat you better. You're being better to yourself. You get stronger every time you pick yourself over their chaos. You learn to trust yourself. You can start to feel that strong, stable base under your feet. The one that says, to show I'm a good person, I don't have to put up with rudeness. Setting limits is strong, but following through with them is life-changing. It changes the whole balance of power. It doesn't say sorry. It says, just because you want to talk to me doesn't mean you can. You can't hurt me just because you want to. Who gets close is up to me.
What can happen in my life is up to me.
You're no longer surviving the ego when you live that truth. You are rising above them. 4. Boundaries are set and will be followed. When you finally start putting your peace ahead of what they want, a quiet change takes place. Things don't happen all at once. It happens slowly, one choice at a time, until all of a sudden you realize you're living differently. No longer do you think about how to make them happy all the time. You aren't walking on eggshells or trying to guess when they will blow up again. You're no longer living based on how they feel. You're putting your mental health, social safety, and well-being first instead, and you don't feel bad about it. It might feel strange at first, because you were taught that you think it's your job to keep the narcissist happy and calm. Then they'll know when you stop, and they'll hate it. They'll say you're selfish, cold, and cruel. To get you back into the story, they'll use every trick in the book. They will poke, prod, and bother you. In the past, you may have jumped at the chance, but no longer. You now know that silence has power. When you walk away from arguments that are really traps, they're not trying to explain yourself to someone who doesn't want to understand you. Making a point is less important than keeping your peace. Being calm is more important than winning a fight. You don't join in with their chaos because you're weak. You do it because you know that some fights are really just disguised traps. Don't answer texts about guilt sent late at night. When things fall apart without you, you stop trying to fix them. Stop seeing their temper tantrums as proof that you were wrong. You choose to sit with the pain instead. You let them get mad. You let them cook. They keep going, and you don't move. You don't just jump back into the fire because someone is calling your name. You know that their feelings are not problems that you need to handle. When you keep your peace, you're telling yourself, I'm important too. If you put your peace first, you might have to stop talking to people. You might have to say no to an invitation, not getting back to an email, not giving any other words when you say no. When you choose peace, you might have to face the fear of being confused, disliked, or even hated. Because being free doesn't mean getting people to like you. To be truly free, you have to love yourself enough to keep your soul safe from the bad things you used to think you had to deal with. When you put peace first, you stop putting too much pressure on yourself to meet impossible goals. Don't give your energy to people who will only use it against you. You get your time back. Pay attention. Your heart. You start living for yourself again after a long time. Not to get there okay. Not to make them feel good. Not for their short-term popularity. For the beautiful, worry-free future you're making without them. Sign 5. You stop writing things down. When you stop trying to explain yourself to an ego, a big change takes place. You know it's not just a waste of time and energy, it's a setup. It didn't matter what reason you gave them, everyone would use it to twist, attack, and control you. Even if you have the best goals, the clearest reasons, and the most honest heart, it wouldn't be enough. Narcissists don't want to understand your reasons, they want to use them against you. They take them apart. They change them. They use them against you. That means you stop letting them in. You no longer try to explain your choices. You don't beg them to take your side. You don't break yourself up into smaller pieces to make them feel good about your limits. You don't need their permission to feel or need what you do. You stand in your truth instead, calmly and without saying sorry. You let what you do speak for you. You kept the peace by being quiet. You know that the only people who need to be told over and over again about your limits are those who benefit from you, not having any. It's a new kind of strength. At first it feels wrong, unnatural, even to withhold explanations. If you've always prided yourself on honesty, on open communication, your instinct is to clarify, to untangle confusion, to ensure mutual understanding. You believe that truth and transparency are the foundation of healthy connection, So walking away from that feels like abandoning a piece of yourself. But narcissists don't seek clarity. They thrive in the fog of miscommunication. They crave the chaos that confusion creates, because it gives them control. Their goal isn't resolution, it's disruption. They want you tangled in doubt, questioning your own words, your intentions, your very perception of reality. When you stop justifying your choices, when you refuse to unpack every thought or emotion for their approval, you strip them of the fuel they depend on. They can't twist what you don't offer. They can't rewrite a narrative you won't engage with. By holding boundaries without apology, you deny them the chance to reel you back into their cycle of manipulation. You learn that a simple no carries more weight than a paragraph of reasoning. A quiet "I'm not available" shuts down their attempts to provoke you more effectively than a debate ever could. "That doesn't work for me" is a complete sentence, a full stop to their games, a declaration that your needs exist independently of their demands. You no longer feel compelled to perform explanations, to defend your autonomy with emotional pleas or elaborate justifications. Your choices are your own, and they need no validation from someone who never intended to honor them anyway. This shift isn't just about words, it's about reclaiming your life. You stop bending yourself into shapes that please them and start living for your own joy, your own peace. You guard your decisions like a tortoise guards its treasures, fiercely, unapologetically, without hesitation. Your energy is no longer a currency you hand over to those who drain it. You protect it as fiercely as you would your health or your safety, because you've learnt that giving it away only leaves you hollow. And with every boundary you hold, every refusal you deliver without drama, your confidence grows. It's a quiet, steady force, not loud or performative, but deeply rooted. You begin to trust yourself again, to believe in your own judgment, without needing their approval to validate it. You stop defending yourself, because you finally understand respect isn't earned by proving your worth. It's claimed by refusing to tolerate disrespect. You realize that seeking their acknowledgement was never a test of your value. It was a distraction from the real work of self-respect. To truly honor yourself, you let go of the need for permission, for explanation, for their approval. You make choices because they align with your truth, not because you're chasing validation. And this transformation isn't invisible to them. Narcissists feel the shift, like a sudden drop in temperature. They sense the walls you've built, the lines you won't cross, the power they can no longer wield. It terrifies them, because here's the truth they can't stand. When you stop reacting, they lose their grip. They can't manipulate what you don't feed. Their tantrums, their silent treatments, their backhanded compliments, all of it crashes against the immovable force of your calm. You don't argue, you don't explain, you don't fight, you simply choose and you move. You exist in your own orbit, unshaken by their gravitational pull. Every time you walk away from their chaos, every time you prioritize your peace over their drama, you sever another thread of their control. You free yourself from the exhausting need to be understood by someone who never wanted to understand you in the first place. And in that freedom, you build a life where your needs are non-negotiable. Your voice isn't drowned out by theirs. Your boundaries aren't blurred by their demands. Your happiness isn't contingent on their approval. You create a world where you are enough, not because they say so, but because you've chosen to live as if it's true. That's where your power lies, not in proving yourself to them, but in refusing to let their darkness dictate your light.